Hello, everyone. I am Evelyn, and thank you for joining me with EaseDrop, going where the conversation takes us. Normally, I have a companion on the show with me. She's running a little bit late. She may or may not make it, but we're going to move along, and hopefully, she'll be able to join us soon. Today, we're going to talk about understanding your relationship with your emotions. So, my concern is that a lot of time we have conflict in our relationships um, because we don't know what we're feeling. We don't really understand what we are experiencing. Um, and that leads to problems. So, for example, let's say someone does something to you. They lie to you, for example. Someone lies to you and you're hurt that they lied to you. So you're all upset, and you confront them and they continue to lie. They continue to lie. They won't admit it. But there's something about needing for them to admit that they lied because that's how you're going to feel better. I just need them to admit that they lied. They know they lied. I don't know why they lying to me. And then you get to the point to where you want to straight back at them. You want to do something to make them feel bad because you feel bad. But then do you know what you're experiencing? Do you know why you feel bad? I think a lot of times what happens is we put the control for our emotions into someone else's hands. We have a habit of saying someone makes me feel this way, or she makes me angry, or you make me do this to you, or you make me feel a certain kind of way. So in school, I had a professor, yes, it's a sound, who had this thing about people make me. His thing was you can't make someone feel a certain way, that a person is going to respond however they're going to respond with whatever they feel. So, an example I like to give oftentimes is, for example, with children. So, for those of you that discipline your children, whether it's spank, punish, however you discipline your children. So, let's say your child break something. He's playing, break something in the house, and you respond with aggression. You're angry, you're fussing. As far as you're concerned, they've made you angry, right? So then you do what you do. You punish them, you send them to their room, you pop them on their behind, whatever you do. And that may be because you didn't have a good day. Your day didn't go well, you woke up late, you got to work, people were acting crazy, whatever was happening, you didn't have a good day. Because you didn't have a good day, now you're responding to this child in an aggressive way. Now, let's take the same scenario, right? The child's playing in the house, running around, he breaks something. This time, you said you need to stop running in the house. You don't punish them. You don't send them to the room. You don't smack them on the butt. What's the difference? Why you hit them the last time and this time you didn't? Well, let's say you got a good night's sleep. You woke up on the right side of the bed. You got to work. Everything was going smoothly for you. So when you get home and this child breaks something, you're okay. You are okay. That had nothing to do with the child. The child didn't make you angry when you had a bad day, no more than he made you okay when you were having a good day. I think part of the problem is, one, we don't understand what we're experiencing in the moment, and we hold other people accountable for what we're experiencing, what we feel, and we want people to make us feel better. But yeah, so how you are feeling, how your day has been going, things you've been experiencing contributes to how you respond emotionally to things that happen. But too often we want other people to do something different to make us feel better. We want sometimes people to read our minds, and when they don't, we're upset. She should have known I wanted to go, or they know I feel like that, or he knew I was going to be upset if he went such and such place. How are they supposed to know? How are they supposed to know that you were going to be upset? How are they supposed to know if you don't communicate that? So sometimes you're communicating and you're fussing about what people are doing, but you never identify how you are actually feeling about what is happening. So you might experience the anger, but what's pushing the anger? Because again, sometimes anger is not the primary emotion. Sometimes anger is the secondary emotion. There are also those times where you're thinking, well, if I do this, then this person is going to do that. And then you're expecting to feel a certain kind of way. The other thing I think we need to think about is um, we need to understand that because we feel something does not make it fact. What do I mean by that? Well, um, sometimes something may happen and you might feel stupid. And because you feel stupid, you may say, oh, they think I'm stupid. They think I'm stupid. Well, no, no one ever said you were stupid. You might feel a little uncomfortable. You might feel stupid, but that doesn't mean someone thinks that you are stupid. I'm sorry, I was trying to get the chat thing to move and it's not moving. So, but I do hope that you guys will join me in the chat, make comments as we go along. But back to what I was saying. The other thing is sometimes we feel, let's say someone looks at us a certain kind of way and we feel good about how they're looking at us. So we say, oh, that person likes me. I know they like me. They want me. How do you know that? Because you felt good when that person looked at you. Again, feelings aren't always fact. Um, one one feeling that we really need to be mindful of is fear. Fear is really powerful. Fear gives us the message that we need to protect ourselves. We need to fight, uh, flight. We need to run away. But sometimes, especially if you've experienced some negative stuff in your life, if you've had trauma in your life, then what you find is that you're often on eggshells waiting for someone to do something for you, to you. You're always fearful that someone's out to get you. So if someone says something a little bit out of the way, they look at you a little bit to the left, then you're feeling fearful. You feel there's a threat that you need to protect yourself from when there's no threat. There's no threat. So you're all in someone's face, getting upset, yelling, screaming, throwing things because you feel threatened when there is no real threat. So I think at some point we have to step back and figure out what we are experiencing. What is our body telling us about our emotions? Because our emotions serve a purpose. What purpose? They communicate to us what we're experiencing internally. They communicate to us how we should respond to our environment, and they communicate how we should respond in general. Like, should I fight? Should I run? Should I be motivated? So it looks like one of the persons that was supposed to join me today is on. Let me check in. Megan, can you hear me? Hello, Megan, can you hear me? Okay, well, not sure what's going on, but hopefully she'll figure out and she can join the conversation with me soon. So, one of the things I want to ask is, so how do you know if you have a poor relationship with your emotions? I think one of the ways you know that you have a poor relationship with your emotions is that you may tend to ignore or minimize your emotions. You may feel hurt, may feel pain, may feel loneliness, and you tell yourself, it's okay, it doesn't matter, it'll be all right. Someone cusses you out, someone does something to violate your boundaries, and you dismiss it, you just let it go. When that happens, that those things build up because there's a need that you have that you are not respecting. uh I'm sorry, Megan says she's trying to get on. Megan, hello.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, I don't know what I did.
Well, thank you for joining me.
You're welcome.
Okay, so I was just talking about how, well, two things. One, how we expect other people to control our emotions. We want them to make us feel better if we're not feeling good. We expect people to do things that's going to help us feel better as opposed to us taking control of our own emotions. So if you lie to me, then I want to make you admit that you lied because I'm thinking somehow that's going to make me feel better. So basically, I was saying that when we don't know how we feel and we try and well, we can't label how we feel and we try to make other people put other people in charge of our emotions, then it causes conflict, I think, between the individuals. So that's where I am basically. Okay. Um, so I was also explaining how to tell whether or
Hello?
not you have a poor relationship with your emotions. Were you saying something? Okay. So I was saying that you ignore or you minimize your emotions. And when you do that, when you decide that what you're feeling, oh, Megan is saying she's having problems staying on. I guess keep trying. When you're having,
Everyone can hear anything.
Megan,
Everyone can see and hear you.
I can hear you. Well, maybe she can't hear me. So, when you decide that what you're feeling is less important than how someone else is feeling, and you are overly concerned about someone else's emotions, then I think what sometimes happens is that you find yourself a little depressed. You may find yourself experiencing some anxiety. You may find yourself withdrawing from others when you minimize how you feel and what your needs are. I think another way to identify that maybe you do not have a healthy relationship with your emotions is you experience all emotions as anger. You're jealous, but you say you're angry. You're hurt, you're grieving, but it comes out as anger. So everything you experience comes out as anger. And you become aggressive, you're shouting, you're yelling, but everything is anger. I think that's another way you can identify the fact that you do not have a good relationship with your emotions. You criticize yourself for feeling or experiencing certain emotions, especially vulnerable emotions. Some of us don't ever want to cry, we don't ever want to experience any emotions that we can consider to be weak. Sadness, grief, and that's a big one. Some people refuse to grieve their losses. But again, our emotions serve a purpose. They help us survive, they help us to understand ourselves, help us to understand our environment, help us to understand how we need to respond to our environment. But we do sometimes criticize ourselves for feeling vulnerable emotions and calling ourselves weak. And then, of course, there are those of us who we don't want to deal with our emotions at all, at all. So, what do? If we're feeling something that's negative, We do everything we can to feel better, whether it's overindulging, taking drugs, having sex, gambling, and well, Megan's in my in my private chat. She said some people go to drugs. Exactly, Megan. One of the points I was going to make: some people go to drugs, and then if you go to drugs enough, then you know what can happen with that. Um, and not only does while you're avoiding feeling, yes, Megan, addiction, while you're avoiding experiencing those negative emotions, you're causing more and more problems. Again, in addition to the drugs and sex and overspending and gambling. And I think one big one is overeating. We don't talk a lot about uh, eating disorders. I mean, just in general, we don't talk about um, what the underlying issue is with overeating. But again, sometimes we do say, "Oh, they're emotionally eating," but we don't talk a lot about that. And again, sometimes just learning how to manage your emotions, being able to label your emotions will allow you to start to address some of those issues or to stop indulging in those things. Another way you might see that you have a poor relationship with your emotions would be um, poor communication. So sometimes I've already said sometimes we experience everything is anger. No matter what you're feeling, you're angry. So you respond aggressively. You respond aggressively to those around you, to those you feel like have harmed you in some way. You respond aggressively. Um, you communicate aggressively. So even if you're not physically being aggressive, then verbally you may be aggressive, cursing people out, yelling, screaming. And it doesn't even matter who you're yelling or screaming at. You're doing it. Um, then passive aggressive communication. Oh, Megan said road rage. Yeah, I didn't even think about that one. Yeah, road rage would be another way that people communicate how they feel. Passive aggressive communication, where you're hurting, you don't like something that's happening, your boundaries have been violated, but what do you say? Oh no, it's okay. I'm good. I'm good. Um, I know I know you think you're the only one out here that needs to be fed, whatever the case may be. With passive aggressive communication, you're talking and acting like everything is okay, but then your body language or sarcasm may be saying something totally different. Megan says, brushing your emotions to the side. Don't want to seem weak. Exactly. People don't want to seem weak, or at least they don't want to feel attacked or feel stupid for being weak or being perceived as weak. So there are times when people are passive aggressive or passive before that very reason because they don't want to appear to be weak. Um, but again, when you're passive and you're denying that you have needs, when you're denying your wants, when you're denying that you are important, then again, you can lead right down the road of depression and or anxiety. So in the DBT, dialectical behavior therapy, they talk about having like an emotional mind, a wise mind, and your rational or reasonable mind. And when I was first introduced to that, I thought it was really interesting because I think we a lot of times function in our emotional mind. So when something happens, we feel something, we respond. We respond with emotion, and in that emotional response, we don't make a rational decision. We don't think rationally. We're not hearing what people are telling us. We're not thinking things through. We make decisions that sometimes once we calm down and we can be more rational or in more of a wise mind, then we find ourselves being really regretful or resentful for some of the things that we said or did. But sometimes within that, in the moment, when you're being emotional like that, you're doing things, you're saying things that you really um, don't want to admit to, or wouldn't do otherwise, basically. um, when you don't have a good relationship with your emotions, you're easily angered. And I know anger just keeps coming up. And for some reason, anger seems to be the emotion. I don't know if it's the fallback or the default emotion for a lot of people. And I don't know if it's because anger for some people is just really easy to express. But I do know that anger, a lot of times, when you're angry and aggressive, whether it's just verbally or physically, it kind of keeps people at a distance. So for some people to feel that kind of anger, to express that kind of anger, is a way they keep themselves safe. They can keep people at a distance, and then they don't have to worry about being vulnerable or anyone trying to get too close to them. Um, and again, as I mentioned, when you're emotional, you don't care about the long term consequences of the decisions you make at the time. Um, and you can also tell people who may be having difficulty with their emotions when they like to joke around and they can tease other people, they can pick on other people, but they can't take it. As soon as you do to them, the things they're doing to you, the things they're saying to you, if you were to say those things back to them, that would be a problem. They wouldn't be able to handle that. They having difficulty with that. Another thing you may recognize when you're not having a good relationship with your emotions is that you don't deal well with criticism. When someone tries to give you feedback, even if it's something to help you, you don't take that very well. Um, and I think people who have, Megan says, too much pride to admit you're wrong. Too much pride, yeah, too much pride to admit you're wrong. And Megan, I also think that maybe sometimes, in addition to having too much pride, I think maybe sometimes they don't have a real sense of a strong sense of self-esteem, and so they don't want other people to know that. So when they're being criticized, they already it's like you're seeing something that they've been trying to hide from other people, which is they don't feel so good about themselves. I know I heard someone talking about jealousy. So jealousy basically, when someone else has something that you want, it doesn't even have to be material things. Somebody can have the kind of relationship you want, or they can have the self-esteem that you want. They can have the attitude, a little air about themselves that you want. Um, and you don't have it, or you don't see yourself as having that, and so you're jealous. And when your personality, yeah, someone can have the personality that you want, is what Megan is saying. When someone when you're jealous and you don't have what someone else have and you want what someone else has, then it can lead to insecurity. And then that insecurity can lead to low self-esteem. Hi, Daisy. And Daisy's saying, especially in our young girls. Thank you, Daisy, for that. Yes, especially in our young girls. And sometimes they're looking at things that they think they want, and they're jealous of those things. But unfortunately, what they think they want may not even be what they want. I think what people want is to be happy. And I heard happiness defined recently as being able to have your needs fulfilled and to experience a sense of safety. So I don't know what happiness means to other people, but that was the definition that someone gave recently. So if you're watching and you want to chime in, let me know how you define happiness, what you think the definition of happiness is. Because I think a lot of times that jealousy comes because there's an unmet need. Um, so, anyway, another way you might be able to recognize that emotions, your relationship with your emotions aren't healthy is you tend to blame others for everything in a relationship. No matter what happens, you do not take ownership. You do not take any responsibility for what happens in your relationships. Now, I do want to clarify, yes, a sense of peace is happiness for Daisy, and for Megan is happiness is through connections. Happiness comes from within self. Yes, and definitely connection. I think as just human species, we need that connection. Um, so anyway, what I was going to explain is that when I mention relationships, I am not talking just about male female relationships. I'm not talking about just intimate relationships, because people have some very toxic relationships, and I hate to say this, but parent child, there are some parent child relationships that are very toxic, because neither one know what they're feeling, how they're feeling, but there's something about them that blames the other one because they feel that way. So yeah, you can have parents have toxic relationships, siblings can have toxic relationships, um, friends can have toxic relationships. So again, when I'm talking about relationships, it could be any relationship, because no matter who you're in the relationship with, if you do not understand your needs, if you do not understand how you're feeling, then there's going to be some problems, because you're going to hold that other person accountable for how you're feeling. You're going to blame them and say, I, if it weren't for you, I wouldn't be feeling like this. If you would just do X, Y, and Z, I could be happy. So, and I think that's something at some point we need to talk about too. People thinking they can't be happy unless there's someone externally, someone outside of themselves that's gonna make them happy. And I think I've mentioned this before about um, you need to be whole before you're in a relationship with anybody, in order for you to be happy. And that's again platonic relationship, family, friends, because again sometimes we tend to navigate towards friends who are as needy as we are, and we co-sign each other's BS. Um, so anyway, the other thing I wanted to talk about just briefly. Yes, I have some notes. Happiness is internal contentment. Thank you, Miss Smith, for commenting. Yes, internal contentment. And Miss Daisy said, I'm not sure what she was commenting on, but she said it can be dangerous. And I do want to say this though. Um, Back to recognizing that our emotions are messengers, right? So our emotions have a purpose. And I mentioned earlier that they communicate our experiences to ourselves, and that they communicate our experiences to others, right? So how I feel sometimes will show on my face, in the tone of my voice, my body language. So other people kind of know what is going on with me by looking at all that stuff. And sometimes, and I hate to say this because it sounds almost stereotypical, but as women, sometimes we try to let people know that we're angry or we're dissatisfied by saying nothing, by giving that silent treatment. So we're trying to communicate to others how we're feeling, which is kind of sad, because if you can't identify what it is you want, if you can't identify what it is you are feeling, then how can the person that you're looking to for support, how can they actually support you? And I think Ms. Smith is saying happiness is internal, But I think sometimes we don't recognize what's going on within us to even know what happiness is or what it actually feels like. We get so caught up, I think, sometimes in looking to other people and other things to make us happy, to be in control of what we feel and how we feel, that we don't know how to do that. You can't speak out of anger, so sometimes it's best to be quiet. Yeah, I agree with that. I think sometimes people do kind of go within themselves so that they don't become aggressive. And I agree. I think that sometimes you have to sit back, kind of gather yourself, gather your thoughts, but that's a healthy thing. So that was Megan that said that. But I think that's a healthy thing. I think the problem is too many of us do not take the time to take a step back, take a deep breath, and to notice what you are experiencing. If my stomach is feeling a certain way, if my fingers are tingling, then what does that mean for me? And how am I going to know? I have to take some time to get to know me, to understand how my body relates its messages to me. Miss Smith says happiness is internal contentment despite of external circumstances. Yes, and Miss Smith, too many of us just have not gotten there yet. We just have not gotten there yet. And I think the only way we're going to get to the point to where we allow our contentment, our happiness to come from within is we're going to have to take a step back and I think develop emotional intelligence. And what I mean by that is we have to first become aware of how our body communicates to us. What does it mean, when I'm angry, what does that feel like? When I'm jealous, what does that feel like? When I'm sad, what does that feel like? Where do I feel that in my body? Once I'm aware of that, then I can do something with it. But if I feel something, I automatically become angry or I automatically react, then I don't, I haven't taken the time to get to know me and understand me. And when I don't do that, I'm looking for other people to make me happy, to make me feel better, to make me feel good. Yes, I have to know me. The other thing that our emotions do for us is that it motivates us to act. Charlotte says, yes, self-awareness. Um, our emotions motivate us to act. So anger has a purpose. Because I know one of my staff said that someone had gotten into trouble because he fell out with his girlfriend and she was doing something to him and he became angry. So he said he needs anger management. No, 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 no. Just because you experience anger does not mean you need anger management. I will say, if when you become angry, especially if anger is the secondary emotion, and you become aggressive and you violate others, and then, yeah, you may need some anger management. But anger motivates you. Anger motivates you to overcome, right? So if I lose a race, if I lose a game, if I fail at something and I become angry about it, that anger should motivate me. That anger should want me to, motivate me to do better. That anger should motivate me to want more. That anger should motivate me to overcome whatever failure I experienced. So anger has its place in our life. All emotions are good, right? It's how we express those emotions, it's what we do with those emotions that sometimes can be the problem. Even not recognizing, not being aware of those emotions and what we feel can be a problem. Um, and again, emotions can be self validating. What do I mean by that? Emotions can, their intuition. Think about it as intuition. Sometimes, if you know yourself well enough, then you can trust yourself. Too often we have been invalidated. Sometimes growing up, we tell kids they don't feel what they know they feel. And it might seem like a little thing. A kid falls down, they get hurt, they're bleeding. They know it hurts. And what do we say? Oh, you're okay. That doesn't hurt. Stop that crying. So we're telling them that what they feel isn't what they feel, that it's not valid. Um, so we learn to not trust our instincts. And when we don't trust our instincts, when we don't trust our intuition, when we don't trust what we are experiencing inside, whether it's because of our past experiences or whatever, when we can't do that, then we become um, we're kind of at the mercy of other people. That's when what I was saying earlier about we decide that our what we feel isn't important. Well, that happens because that's how other people have treated us. That's what we came up with. People telling us that what you feel isn't what you feel. Tara says, yes, emotions are good. In certain cultures, it is frowned upon to express certain emotions. Um, I definitely agree with that. I don't know a lot about different cultures, but I do know that certain cultures don't express certain things. I had a you know what? I don't even want to say, but I had someone from another culture, and in group therapy, it was trying to get her to experience um, a certain emotion, and it just was not happening. And unfortunately, and I want to say this was years ago. So, I'm a decent therapist. This was years ago. But, with all the cultural competency trainings and stuff we have now, it clicked with me later that, you know what? I'm trying to take her somewhere I want her to go when it wasn't necessary for her because she understood her emotions. She knew what she was experiencing. She knew what she was feeling. She had learned to manage the emotions that she felt, the emotions that she was willing to express. She was okay with those. She was doing fine with those. It was me putting my values onto her. Megan says, get up, you're not hurt, not allowing kids or person to understand self emotions exactly. So that's where we start to invalidate what someone else is feeling. So, and when that happens again, we don't trust ourselves. And when we don't trust ourselves, I think sometimes we start to put our trust in the wrong people and in the wrong things. And again, then we sometimes find ourselves indulging or overindulging in things that can actually harm us. Um, so, anyway, I thank you guys for joining me. I'm not getting ready to go, but I do thank you for joining me thus far. Um, so, I have a question if you're willing to interact with me a little bit. What emotion do you think is the hardest for us as women to experience and um, to manage? I had a conversation with Miss Smith, Miss Charlotte Smith, I think months and months ago, and she talked about a class that she had facilitated online and how fear seemed to be a big emotion or a big issue with the persons that she had spoken with. And Tara says vulnerability. Vulnerability, she thinks, is really hard for women to express. It's hard for women to be vulnerable. Ivana says not good enough. And that is definitely a good one, Ivana. As long as I've been doing counseling, that seems to be one that comes up over and over and over and over again. Not good enough. And and I just wonder where that comes from for us as women. How do we, so many of us anyway, get the message that we are not good enough? I don't know if that comes from watching things on TV and seeing we don't match up. Well, not just TV, but social media, any of those kind of outlets, but just not feeling good enough, don't look good enough, not smart enough, not tall enough, not short enough, just not enough. Um, Not enough for the relationship you want, not um, enough for the job that you want. Charlotte says inadequacies. Yeah, not feeling adequate. And I don't know if Charlotte is saying that it's the comparisons that causes us to not feel good enough or if it's the inadequacies. But I think it's definitely the comparison. Someone asked once upon a time, and I don't know if I've ever mentioned this, they said, do women dress for women or do women dress for men? And I think women dress for other women. Now, we can have that discussion later. We can talk about that as a whole topic if you guys like. But I think sometimes when we are getting dressed, when we're buying things, we're looking at what other women have, what they bought, what their nails look like, what different things they've done, how, what creativity were they able to have with their hair. And when we see all that, then sometimes we're trying to match up with, and I mean, how many times do we look at other women and we kind of judge? How many, and not saying it's always negative. Sometimes we look at each other and we can compliment each other, but often we're comparing for that. Charlotte says comparison robs us of our self worth. I definitely agree. Ivana says sometimes we don't get wanted or needed reassurance that we are enough or on the right track. Um, and Yvonne says she think we dress for both. Well, again, I think I you know what, and I'm gonna self disclose. So and Megan says, oh, Megan says she dresses for you for herself. Okay, Megan, we're good for you, girl. Um, but I think that I think my mom was hypercritical, and only because she wanted us to be the best, she had high standards for us. Um, and in a lot of ways, her being that critical, wanting us to get things right, do things right, I think helped me in the long run. It helped me to overcome some things. It had me to set expectations high for myself, but at the same time, those high expectations, when I wasn't able to meet them or when the bar kept moving, I didn't feel good enough because it's like, okay, I did this, and then the bar moved up to here, and I'm fighting to get there, and it kept moving. And unfortunately, I hate to say, but I think that sometimes some behaviors are learned. Um, and I think I did some of that for my kids, especially my older child. Just kept setting the expectations higher, but that's because I wanted so much for her. But as I got older, I had to take a step back and look at myself. I had to take a step back and identify how I was feeling and what was going on within me. What was I feeling that I needed to put that off on her and make her perform? Because it was just like based on what she did or did not do, I felt that. So at some point, I had to take a step back, get to know me, understand what I feel, how I feel, why I feel what I feel. Because again, emotions communicate that for you. Emotions communicate for you what your thoughts are, what your beliefs are, what your needs are. So I had to figure out what was going on within me that I had to keep setting these expectations so high for her. What did I want for her, and why did I want that for her? And what I learned was it was a little more about me than it was for her. So again, going back to, and I think Charlotte said it somewhere, I can't see it is going now, but that self-awareness, you have to get to know self. Otherwise, you'll be surprised at what you put off on other people. How the expectations you have for other people is really about you and your needs and what you are feeling. So until you understand what you need, what you're feeling, what you believe, then your expectations of others may not be realistic, or may be full of conflict because they're not going to meet up. They're not going to meet your expectations. And those expectations sometimes is just um, how you want them to make you feel. And I'm going to go right back to it. Nobody can make you feel. Now, can I do something that causes you to feel anger? Yeah, I can do something to cause you to feel anger, but I can't make you angry. Because you can look at me and decide something's wrong with her and not wear that. Because if you decide the problem is me, then you don't become angry. But if I do something, say something to you about you, and you become angry, then you've just taken a little of that on for yourself. So, and Megan said, tore you down but made you stronger. Mm, yeah, yeah, and I think that goes back to anger, anger being a motivator. When someone's tearing you down, when you're not meeting expectations that keep changing the bar, then you become angry. And when you become angry, hopefully it motivates you to achieve in spite of. Another thing, helplessness. I think when we start to feel helpless, then we fight for some control. And just depending on how we fight for that control. Sometimes we want people that we're in relationships, we want them to behave differently. We want them to do something different. And how do we try to get them to do something different? We preach, we preach, we preach, we beg, we fuss, trying to get them to do and be different so that we can feel some sense of control. But again, you are in control of your emotions. You are in control of how you feel. Because you know what? Those people that continue to cause problems or do things that lead you to feel a certain way do not have to be in your life. You can set boundaries and you can keep it moving. Um, you just said a mouthful. It takes a very conscientious parent to look at their children from a distance and watch them grow and blossom into who they should be without imposing any of their own wishes, dreams, and expectations are on a child. They mean well, but it's a hard job. It is definitely a hard job. But I think, again, agreeing with you, Ms. Jones, that we have to take a step back and we have to look at ourselves. And Megan said, those who anger you take your power. Well, I think it depends on how you respond to the anger because, again, anger can be and should be a motivator. But when the person angers you and you lose control and you want them to do something different to make you feel better, then you've given your power to them. And that's with any emotion. If somebody hurts me, somebody lies to me, somebody betrays me, and I want them to do something different to make me feel better because I see them as the reason for my emotion, then yeah, I've given them that power. I'm saying you had the power to make me feel negatively, so you have the power to make me feel better. The power is yours. The power is yours, but not until you get to know yourself, you understand yourself, understand what your emotions are trying to tell you about yourself, and you learn to manage those emotions. And once you do that, learn to set boundaries. Learn how to, if there's someone in your life and they're a family member and they're not someone that you can just kick out of your life, then learn to set the boundary. Learn to know when you're going to deal with them. Learn to what you're going to accept from them, what you're not going to accept from them. Learn to say, okay, when they start with this kind of behavior, when they start saying this kind of stuff, I'm going to have to leave the area. If it's somebody who does not have to be in your life and they're causing you to experience a lot of negative feelings, and you're not getting your needs met, and they're emotionally draining and they're causing problems for you, shut the door. Leave them on out, shut the door. Okay? Um, I really appreciate you guys who are communicating with me. Um, let's see if there was something else I wanted to say. Oh, yeah. So, understanding your relationship with your emotions, I think, again, it's just going to take time for you to step back and get to know yourself, um, and evaluate the messages that you have in your head about who you are and why you feel the way you feel, instead of just ignoring those things. Now that can be kind of difficult, um, but there are things on YouTube you can look at. There are books that you can buy, and you can go see a therapist. But I think the most important thing is to pay attention to what your emotions are trying to tell you. Again, I'm going to say it. Your emotions communicate to you what your experiences are internally, what your experiences are externally, and they also give you messages about how you need to respond to those stimuli, whether it's internal or external. They give you information about what your thoughts are, what your beliefs are. How do they give you information about your beliefs? Well, it's simple. So if I believe that all people should have a fair um, or a fair chance at housing, let's say, and I see people on the streets and they're homeless, and I think that's injustice, then I'm going to feel a certain kind of way because of my belief. So there are emotions attached to our beliefs. So some things you don't care about, just think about it. Things you don't care about, you don't feel. If I don't believe, if I don't have an opinion about certain things, then I probably don't have any emotion attached to it. Okay? So if something happens, somebody says something, you read something, somebody does something, and you feel something, it may be tied to a belief. Take a step back, acknowledge it, have a conversation with yourself about what's going on, and then you deal with it. Okay? We have to learn to manage our emotions. But again, before you learn to manage your emotions, become aware of your emotions and not just react or respond when you're feeling something. Take that time, whether it's through meditation, whether it's just sitting outside, enjoying the air or whatever, and reflecting on some things, whether it's when you're in that emotional mind, when you're not really able to think clearly, when you feel yourself getting to that point, take a step back, maybe even get by yourself. As Megan was saying earlier, sometimes people have to be quiet, get in their own little space so they don't say or do something. You get in that space and you figure it out. Figure out what that's about for you. I want to thank you guys for joining me today. I really appreciate, and I'm so glad to have the comments. Um, Sorry, not sure what happened to Christina. Really sorry she wasn't able to join us, but I do appreciate Megan's willingness to join me, although she was having some technical difficulties. You guys couldn't see her, but she was giving me her comments in my private chat. So thank you, Megan. I truly appreciate it. I love you so, so much. Hi, Ida. Thank you for the feedback. So I'm not sure what our topic is for next time, but I promise you I'll put it out as soon as I come up with it. But again, I do want to encourage you to take some time to increase your emotional intelligence. You can, of course, you can look that up, do a little bit of research. There's a lot of research, a lot of information on emotional intelligence. And once you can improve or increase your emotional intelligence, I'm almost sure, can't guarantee you, but 99% sure that you would be able to improve your relationships. Again, improve your relationship with your own emotions, and then you'll be better equipped to be in a relationship with someone else. Thank you again for joining me. I think February the 16th, I will be back, same time, 7 p.m., Promise Resource Network. Thank you and good night.